Welcome back to another episode of Scary Sundays, Monday edition. So, today's topic is something that I've been going through this week, and I actually want to invite those of you who are watching or listening to this to inquire for this within yourselves by asking you a question. And the question is, how often do you let yourself, and when I say let yourself, I mean fully allow for and accept, how often do you let yourself have an off day? That could mean feeling like you're not focused at work. That could mean feeling like you're not socially engaged with people, maybe feeling a little socially awkward or socially anxious. It could mean feeling like you're not living up to your purpose in life or your core values, if you are one of the lucky awake people to have a sense of what those things are for yourself. Basically just means you're not living up to your own standards that you've set for yourself. And the reason I ask this is because I definitely have been going through a little bit of feeling like I haven't been able to fully embrace and accept compassionately my off days over the last couple weeks. I've had a few of them, and specifically with regards to my level of openness and engagement socially. And I think one of the reasons that I've had a hard time accepting them, the most obvious and deepest one is basically like, my core uh, childhood sort of messaging or insecurity, which is that in order to fit in order to belong, in order to feel loved, in order to receive love from others, I have to be performing at a super high level. And this is a message that I wrongfully took on as a young child because of early experiences, and kind of basically just taking on the message that in order to be accepted or fit in or loved, I can't make mistakes. Like I need to be perfect in all these different areas. And I know that this is something that a lot of people um, struggle with or may deal with. I know I'm not alone in this. And I've done a lot of work to let go of a lot of that to the point now where I definitely accept myself a lot more, even when I'm not on my A game, so to speak. And I use that actually as an opportunity to ask myself, to ask my body what it needs in that moment. And oftentimes, what it needs is rest or just my acceptance and my compassionate love for myself in that situation uh, instead of getting subtly upset with myself because I'm not performing at this super high level. And that takes a lot of work, and there's a lot of modalities to make progress on that. But I found this week that even with all that work that I've done, I definitely was judging myself specifically around this idea of not really feeling as socially engaged and outward focused as I did for the first couple weeks that I was living here in Portugal, in Lisbon. And I think I was judging myself for it because I was comparing it subtly to the first couple weeks where I really felt like really motivated and inspired to meet new people and engaged. And it was really nice for me because typically I'm like pretty introverted. Like my natural state is to be kind of a homebody and just like keep to myself or keep to my core group of people that I really like to go deep with. It's not my natural state to go out and just be a social butterfly all the time. But it felt so good when I first got here because I was a new country and I was really had this intention of connecting with people and meeting people. And yeah, last weekend I was at a party and I just found myself feeling like it was such a beautiful event. There were all these amazing, cool, beautiful people there. And I found myself just genuinely not being interested in talking to any of them. And I feel like the ability to sit in that environment and be okay with that and not put pressure on yourself to be social if you don't feel like it is a really, really deep practice in self love and self compassion because it allows us to get really, really aware of all the ways that we subtly put on a mask in order to meet a situation where it's at rather than meet it where we are at. And what I mean by that is there's a tendency, or there can be a tendency, to abandon ourselves, even in really subtle ways where it might not feel like we're abandoning ourselves or that we're not being ourselves, but we do it in these subtle ways. And the more that we do it, the more it builds up. And then we suddenly wonder why we're so exhausted or disillusioned by uh, a social situation or a scene or whatever it is that we're trying to be a part of. And that tendency to abandon yourself in really subtle ways, you know. An example could be something like you're at a party and maybe your friend is introducing you to someone, and you're kind of just like not really in a talkative mood. So you get introduced to them, maybe you shake their hand, you like have a little chat. And how often do we feel this pressure to like keep a conversation going, or like just not have silence with someone that we've just met? It's kind of this like thing that I feel like a lot of people can relate to, feeling kind of awkward. But allowing yourself to sit in that situation, and maybe even the other person does think it's kind of awkward, but allowing yourself to just fully be loyal to how you're feeling. So if you don't feel like talking or engaging, like not turning that into this story that you're like, you know, like, why am I not wanting to be social? I'm at this party, and not turning into this like tense feeling of like FOMO, where you're like, oh, well, I'm here, I might as well like, you know, engage. And then you do it inauthentically or half-heartedly, when really maybe what you wanted to do and maybe what was right for you for that evening was to just sit by yourself in the corner with your head in your hands crying. No, I'm just kidding. I mean, that could be right too, but maybe what's right is something a little more balanced, which is just to be sitting by yourself and not really feeling this obligation, this self-imposed obligation to act in a way or embody a personality that genuinely is not you in that moment. And I think we can learn a lot about ourselves when we start to get curious about, where do I still judge myself for being off? And what is the fear that I have, or the shame that I have underneath, that if I don't be on in this moment, whether it's professionally, socially, in a relationship, like whatever, what am I afraid is going to happen? Am I afraid that I'm going to lose love? Am I afraid that I'm not going to be as effective, or that people won't want to hang out with me because they think I'm boring or whatever? Like, there's so many different reasons that we might feel obliged to act in ways that embellish how we actually feel in the moment. And these are just subtle ways that we leave ourselves. We leave the deep home within ourselves, which, by the way, is the thing that is the most charismatic thing anyway, if you wanted to just be completely strategic about it. But we leave that place because we feel that we need to show up for a certain situation in a certain way. And I am bringing this up because it's something I've been definitely experiencing in myself in subtle ways. And the way that I'm trying to sort of remember to stay home with how I feel, regardless of whether or not I think like I might be judged for that or whatever in a situation, is by first becoming aware. This is why awareness is the key to literally everything, in my opinion. But becoming aware of when those moments happen, and I feel that like urgency to be someone that I'm not in a moment, and then allowing for myself to fully feel the urgency and inquiring, what is it about this situation that is causing me to feel urgent to show up in a way that's different from how I feel? What am I afraid of losing in this situation if I just fully embody how I feel? Or if I'm not letting myself fully embody how I feel, is there some shame or sadness underneath me not allowing myself to show up how I want to feel? And typically this is something that is not my idea, but I've borrowed it and adapted it from some of my Zen teachers and some other therapists that I've worked with, which is that typically the core emotion under any feeling of uneasiness, the primary emotion is typically sadness, shame, or fear. And it can be a good place to just start in the moment when you start feeling that urgency to like perform, basically, and you don't feel like you actually want to, just to inquire if any of those things are present, and how we can realize that the more we inquire within in that situation rather than going outward, which is what our ego is begging us to do because it wants us to remain within a certain light in other people's eyes, because it has this false belief that if we appear in a certain way, we will lose love, which again, as we discussed earlier, is a faulty, ineffective childhood belief that was created before we could project other people's experiences in a situation. Back when we just thought the world revolved around us, and that's how kids live, is like straight from that place where everything has implications on them. But now that we're adults and we have the critical thinking to understand that it's truly no one else's, it's not our responsibility about how anybody feels about us, and we can really live that way, then this is a way to start coming back home to that place, is becoming aware when that trigger, let's call it, happens in the moment where you feel this urgency. Step 1. Step 2 is inquiring what is the primary emotion underneath that. And then step 3 is just taking your time to soothe that emotion within yourself internally, so that you're not making it other people's responsibility at a subconscious level to soothe yourself, because you know how to soothe yourself. So again, this is a practice like everything, but something I've been going through that I want to share with you guys. I hope it helps, and peace out.